Hey, hoopballers, are you into sports betting? Do you want to know why a certain game has a funky line? Well, Hoopball has you covered. Today in Sports Betting is a great addition to all your handicapping questions with hosts Ira Silver and Devin Ellington. We break down game lines and future bets on all sports and try to make some money along the way. Follow us on Twitter at Hoopball Gaming, at Ira Silver Magic, and at DALE007. And download Today in Sports Betting in the App Store, Google Play, and available on Spotify.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Hoop Ball DFS Today. I'm your host, Santino Caccone, and I am joined with the awesome David Menkov. Dave, how you doing tonight? We already had our first two tastes of basketball, the first two-game slate for NBA resumption opening day, I guess you can call it, and then a quality slate tonight. We are actually recording this very late tonight. The Rockets and Mavs game is almost finishing up on 7:31. When you guys hear this tomorrow on October or August 1st, you'll be hopefully listening to this on your commute. But Dave, how you doing tonight?
Doing well. Really excited. Basketball is back. Couldn't be happier. The bubble is exciting. I have to say it. I'm really enjoying this format.
Yeah, we get game after game after game coming up for the next couple weeks, and I hope the bubble works out because what we're seeing in Major League Baseball is outbreak after outbreak. But the bubble looks pretty good so far. So let's keep it going. Yeah, we got a good docket on tonight. This is the third day back. Dave and I were talking before we went on. We like these games as real life basketball, but for DFS, it's kind of tricky. But that's what we'll touch into. So the first game on the docket starts at 1 p.m. tomorrow, guys. So you're going to want to get in your lineups really early. We have a game at 1 and then another at 3:30, 6, 7, and then 8:30 is the nightcap. But this first game starts at 1 p.m. Eastern time. It's the Heat versus the Nuggets. The Heat are favored. The Nuggets are favored by 1 point with a negative 125 money line. The Heat have a net plus 105 money line with an over-under coming in at the lowest of the night at 211. Dave, I remember we were on here last week, talking about the Heat, and there was no Bam or Kendrick Nunn. They wound up coming back the next day, I believe. So they're ready to go. Gary Harris is not there. Will Barton will not play. Jamal Murray is questionable, but he's probably going to play. With all this big news, what do you like about the Heat and Nuggets? What don't you like? Where are you looking?
Yeah, it's a great call out. As you mentioned, this slate is certainly going to be exciting from a game perspective, but not as much maybe from a DFS perspective, but even more exciting getting some lower owned guys. So starting with this matchup on the Miami Heat side, like you mentioned, Bam Adebayo, a guy that was very consistent before we hit pause in the season. He's coming in at a pretty reasonable price tag based on his output potential, 8,100. Really like him, as well as Jimmy Butler. He's priced sub 8,000 right now. It's 7,600 on DraftKings. Another guy I'm going to be targeting pretty heavily from Miami side in a lot of my lineups. And then you mentioned as well Kendrick Nunn, a guy who hasn't played much from a scrimmage perspective, but a guy that can get hot at any point. And he's coming in on DraftKings shade over 5,000 or 5,200. So he's another guy that I'll be looking at a little bit. Not a huge focus for any of my lineups, but maybe some of my GPP builds versus my cash lineups for sure.
Yeah, I like that. And just so the viewers know, guys, the Heat and Nuggets are two of the bottom three teams in pace of play. So that is why, that coupled with they're both pretty good defensive teams, especially the Heat, is why they are the low over-under on the night. But I'm with you. If I'm going to target anybody on the Heat, especially in this game, it's Bam Adebayo. Born Adebayo, as I like to call him. That's a little CCR reference. But yeah, I like for 8,100, that's pretty good. He's averaging 1.18 fantasy points per minute. Not too high priced, but we know Jokic is not the greatest of defenders. So he's going to be going up against Jokic. He can get a shot off, and he racks up defensive numbers and hustle stats. So I don't mind him there. Butler, as you mentioned, he is, I believe, he's the second highest shooting guard priced on the docket, but 7,600 really is not that much. He's another guy averaging 1.2 fantasy points per minute. Interesting fact about the Heat. When everybody is healthy, Butler, Nunn, Dragic, Hero, and Bam, that's 5 guys, are all within 25.5 and 21.1% usage. So there really is no massive usage monster when everybody is healthy. But that's why I like those top 2 guys. And I'll throw in another guy. You mentioned Kendrick Nunn. I kind of like, if I'm going to go in the bargain bin here, Tyler Hero. He had a pretty good game his last game, and he's only 3,100. If you're looking for cheap scorers who can shoot threes, and that's what the Nuggets kind of give up, especially without Gary Harris out there and Will Barton, that's a guy I would look for who can get hot in a moment. But how about the Nuggets? Who are you liking on the Nuggets? Because me personally, this is where I think the most value of the DFS slate for cheap value is at.
Couldn't agree more, actually. On the Nuggets side, I mean, you mentioned it. Slim Jokic, as he's going by right now, he's coming in at only 9,000. And with his new, potentially swift game, with his new body type that he's bringing back, it's exciting. So that's someone I would probably target in a fair share of my lineups. And then you mentioned, as far as bargain bin guys, a guy that's been really putting up some pretty decent numbers during scrimmages is Bol Bol. He's coming in at min price at 3,000, and he should get some run for the Nuggets, a decent amount minutes considering how he played during scrimmages. So I expect him to easily hit value at that min price of 3,000. It's definitely worth a shot throwing in your lineups. And then another guy that's really stepped up with the absence of Gary Harris and Jamal Murray has been a guy, Torrey Craig, also min price at $3,000. So those are my 2 dumpster diving value plays I would think of the entire slate, for at least on my end. What about you?
So we're close, but a little apart on this. Like, I believe there's a lot of value on the Nuggets as well, but I'm kind of looking a little bit different. The new Slim Jokic is something that's exciting. For me, I don't know if I want it in this game. I kind of want to see a game or 2 from him. Bam Adebayo is one of the best defenders in the league, whether he can guard out on the perimeter, he can guard in the interior, he can guard anybody anywhere. So that is a little questionable to me. And at 9,000, that's not a bad price tag, as you mentioned. But there is another guy I'm looking at that we'll get to later that's close to that. I like the Bol thing. Is we got to get to the elephant in the room. Bol is here. I don't know if I want to put too much stock in him in his first NBA game. He has as much NBA experience as I do currently, which is funny to think. This guy was crushing in scrimmages, but there is no Gary Harris. There is no Will Barton, so he should see some minutes. But there is another guy who came back and lit it up as well, in Michael Porter Jr., who is also only minimum price at 3,000. That is the guy that I'm starring on my list. He should start over Bol or Jerami Grant. That's a guy who I'm targeting very heavily because I think he can blow up potential all the time. Bol, I like him, but I need to see it actually in a game before I invest. But if you're trying to pay up for big guys and you need bargain bins, he is mid-price too, like mid-level price at as cheap as you can get. A couple other guys I'll throw out there. Paul Millsap is secretly, with everybody that's without Gary Harris and Will Barton, he's only played 50 minutes without those 2 guys, but he's secretly in those 50 minutes, which is the smallest of sample size, he's averaging nearly 2 fantasy points per minute, which is insane. He's only 4,900. If you're going to, the weakest point on the Heat for an individual defender is their power forward position, so maybe I look there. Jerami Grant, if you're bargain binning, again, is only 4,000. He could get a start at small forward and bump Porter Jr. to shooting guard because they are missing 2 of their starters on the wings. And if you're just really digging again, Troy Daniels might start at shooting guard and he can get hot. But to me, I'm just looking mainly at Porter Jr., Millsap, and if you need to, Bol.
All right, I love it. Michael Porter Jr. was a great call. That's a guy that I think pre-break everyone was very excited because he, of any of the Nuggets, definitely shown, at least in his early, very young career, that when he's not injured, he can really light it up. So from a fantasy perspective, certainly a guy that has some great boom or bust potential.
Yeah, and it's funny because Bol will probably get some minutes at small forward, power forward, center. He missed a lot of time with an injury, and so did Michael Porter Jr. So that guy's no health. He's not risk averse as well. But at 3,000, if you're going to dig for someone, those could be good calls. And I would wait to see what happens with Jamal Murray, because if he doesn't play, that just gives these guys even more value because they're going to see more minutes, and this lineup's going to shake up again. Maybe they do go with that huge lineup again. We don't know, but we'll see what happens if Jamal Murray can't make it. But yeah, I think we're both on the page that the Nuggets have a lot of value out there. Probably, or without a doubt, the most on the slate. Which is if you're digging for cheap plays, it's going to be in that Nugget team. Awesome.
Absolutely.
So the second game on the slate is another really good real-life basketball game. Two playoff teams, two teams jockeying for position. But we'll talk about what that means for DFS. And this is the Jazz, who are playing their second game since the restart. They played on opening night against the Thunder. The Jazz are the underdogs by 1.5 points. OKC is favored. Jazz have a plus 105 money line. OKC has negative 125, and the over/under is 215 on my bookie. 215 is there's three games that are 215, and then one game that's 215, two that's 215 and a half. So these are the midpoint games. Then you got the low one with the Heat Nuggets and a high one that we'll get to later. But speaking of the Jazz and the Thunder, what do you like about this team? Two teams that are in the bottom 10 in pace again, so it's slower. There is no Jokic, but there are some decent guys here.
Absolutely, and you hit the nail on the head with the fact that it's certainly going to be a fun game from a real-life perspective. But from a fantasy perspective, a couple guys, at least from the Utah side, we did get a chance. We've already played one game. We have seen some performances post break, and Rudy Gobert at 7K is an interesting piece I would look at. I know he's going up against Steven Adams, but last game he put up 35 points, and I fully expect to be somewhere in the high 30 point from a DraftKings perspective. I see him getting some significant points and should be able to hit value. Donovan Mitchell, another high usage player on the Jazz, especially with Bogdanovich out for the remainder of the season. He's going to be even higher usage now, and he did put up 42 DK points last game, so I expect him to hit that as well. And then from a value perspective, Royce O'Neal is a guy that really stepped up for Utah with the absence of Bogdanovich, as I mentioned. At 4,800, he's a guy that should be able to hit value. He's priced somewhere, I would say, fairly well, but I still think he should be able to exceed his value a little bit at that price tag.
Yeah, I like that. The Gobert thing, he's going against Steven Adams, but he is a guy that he doesn't need usage to get his what he does. He does the dirty work, and they both do the dirty work. I like Mitchell. Without Bo on there, Mitchell is the guy, or he was the guy. But you're missing your second leading scorer on the team and your second highest usage on the team. So Mitchell is always in play, no matter who they're facing. So I like that one. Two other guys that I like. One guy that is only 3,900. I liked him in the first game. I'll like him again. Is Jordan Clarkson. Until his price goes up, he is a guy that I will like on DraftKings a lot. For 3,900, without Bohan there, last game he led the team with 23 points. He played 32 minutes. This guy is probably going to play 30 minutes every game now, especially against the Thunder team that likes to play Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. butchering that name. I am the butcher. I'll just say SGA and now I'm drawing a blank. I butchered a name. Now I'm drawing. Oh, and Schroeder. Okay, the butcher's in prime form right now. But a team that plays three guards like that, I can see easily Clarkson, Conley, and Mitchell sharing the floor for a good amount of time as well. So maybe you can even bump Clarkson up to 35 minutes at 3,900. He easily can top 20 points, a couple assists, a couple rebounds, a couple steals. I really like that. That's one of my favorite value plays on the night. And Mike Conley. If you're going cheaper on a point guard, he's not bad anymore. Without Bo on there, they need him to score, and he played pretty well last night or 2 nights ago. And he's just a little bit better than he was early in the season. He was never that bad, but he's starting to pick his game up. I wouldn't actively target him. I like the Mitchell and Clarkson better, but if you're stuck on point, or if you have the money and you're only within like 6,000 left, he's not a bad guy to play for me. So how do you feel about the Thunder side? We have quite a few people that we like on the Jazz for their price range. There's nobody higher than Gobert at 7,000, which for an entire team doesn't have a guy over 7. That's incredible value. But how do you feel about the Thunder?
Yeah, as you mentioned, the Thunder are slight favorites in this matchup, and they're going up against a pretty solid defensive team. But I do like two of the guys at the top. So I like Chris Paul at 7,400. I expect him to resume, especially with seeding being a very big factor for the Thunder. I like Chris Paul to really continue to play well. But a guy that I like actually more than Chris Paul even on the Thunder is you mentioned Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
I tried to at least,
as you mentioned. But at sub 7,000, 6,800, he's certainly a guy that I'm going to put in a great percentage of my lineups, just because he's a guy that's a budding star in the league, and I think. With this bubble format, I really expect him to really step up and really perform well and definitely be able to exceed that price tag.
Yeah, I'm with you there. If I'm going to play someone on the Thunder, I'm not really targeting them. I don't really against the Jazz and how slow they play. It's not a team that I'm going to actively target. But if I am going to target someone, number one would be SGA. For 6,800, that's not a bad price. He is a budding star, as you mentioned. It's not going to be long until this is his team. And I like him in this matchup. He'll probably have either Mitchell, Conley, or Clarkson guarding him for the majority of the time. And Chris Paul would be my second choice. I'm not really actively targeting Chris Paul. I'm kind of staying away from the Thunder in general besides SGA if I have to play him. But he's been pretty well this late, and he had rest. He's going to be healthy and rested up to get back into this, and the Thunder need to win this game to jump up in the seeding, so I like him too. But outside of that, I'm with you. There's really not any team that I want to, or any player that I really want to go against Gobert or Royce O'Neal and the rest of this crew. So yeah, those are the first 2 games. We already broke down 2 games. 2 very good, four teams that are making the playoffs, and 4 teams that are in the mid-seeding right now in the playoffs. Very good basketball teams and very good basketball games ahead. But the next game that we're going to do is we're going to skip over the 6 p.m. game and save it for a little bit later. It's a juicier game, and it's a game that we wanted to save and get you guys pumped up for afterwards. But we're going to skip to and go right ahead to the 7 o'clock game, which is the 76ers versus the Pacers. The Pacers are underdogs by 5.5 points. The 76ers are favored. The Pacers are a plus 195 on the court. On the money line, the Sixers are a negative 235. And the over-under is, as I mentioned, there's a lot of these, 215.5. There's not that much news on the Sixers side, but there is quite a bit of news on the Pacers side. So Oladipo is still up in the air whether he's playing or not. We don't know if he's going to play. We don't know if he's not. By the time you hear this tomorrow, hopefully you have a decision, but we might not know. Malcolm Brogdon is questionable. He might not play. And we already know Domantas Sabonis is most likely not playing for the rest of the year, and at least not tomorrow or in this slate. So how do you feel about, let's hit the Sixers first and save this big just questionable tag around the Pacers after that, because that's going to be very interesting. Who do you like on the Sixers team, and do you think they keep it close enough to where a lot of these guys hit their value?
Yeah, you mentioned it. Domantas Sabonis. There's this. See, I'm butchering now.
I give that vibe off. Don't worry.
The Sabonis is certainly going to be interesting in terms of how close this game is going to be. But as listeners will start to understand, I'm a huge Philadelphia 76ers fan. So from this side, there's a few guys that if the game stays close, I'm really interested in. So start at the top with Embiid at 9,700. It's a very hefty price tag to pay for Embiid. However, with Sabonis potentially missing the game, he should have no issue getting whatever he wants in terms of from a defensive standpoint. So I see him, if he can exceed 35 minutes, he should be able to hit some value. So I'll put him in a good amount of lineups. What I'm really excited about is on the Sixers side is the potential switching of positions. So Ben Simmons is going to be potentially starting at power forward for the first time in his NBA career. And 8,600 is certainly going to be interesting to take some shots there, considering the price tag. He should be able to operate down low pretty consistently, especially with the Pacers banged up from that standpoint. Another guy that I was a huge fan of prior to the break, he really came on with Simmons injured, is the starting point guard, Malik Benjamin, a.k.a. Shake Milton, coming out of SMU. Not bad for a second-round pick starting in the NBA again. So that's really exciting. And at 5,600, that's a price tag that's certainly going to be a great GPP option to throw out there and see what he can do, starting with a healthy 76ers squad. So those would be my main three guys on the Philadelphia side.
Yeah, I'm with you. Boom, ding, ding, ding. I'm with you all on board on that one. I think when we talked earlier and I said I like someone in the price range of Jokic a little bit better, I was talking about Embiid. I think Embiid against a non-Domantas Sabonis team is going to have free reign on getting every rebound that he wants, because Miles Turner isn't known for that. Domantas Sabonis rips down boards. Stealing a Dave Chappelle joke, rips down boards like Charles Barkley. But without him there, Embiid's probably going to just do some work in the post. The only question about him, and same thing with Simmons, is this game going to be competitive? If Oladipo doesn't play, if Brogdon doesn't play, will they just blow them out? But if they don't, and it's within 10, 12 points, they're going to get their minutes, because Brett Brown wants to see these guys gel before we get into the playoffs. Last time they didn't get as far as they wanted to last year, and they weren't gelled up, and they weren't gelled as a team this year. But he's hoping that these 8 games before we start up, they get back together. And I know he wanted to play Embiid more minutes than he was playing prior to everything going down. So Embiid is a guy that I am actively targeting, assuming that Depot and Brogdon, or one of those two, play and keep it a little closer than I think it could get out of hand. But Simmons is another guy. What a great matchup, right? You don't have Sabonis, so probably TJ Warren is going to start at power forward. You don't have that huge, massive body to go against in your first game at power forward. You have a guy who's probably smaller than you in height-wise and similar weight-wise. So very big win for him, and I am excited to see at 8,600 what he can do as a power forward and have more shooters around them, him and Embiid, and just see what they can do in that scenario. Shake Milton, I'm not actively targeting him, but again, if this game gets out of hand, which it could, or Depot and Brogdon don't play, then he gets a little bump for me, because I think he'll play even if this game gets out of hand, rather than a Simmons or an Embiid would, because they do have that injury history. Awesome. But so we have the Embiid and Simmons bandwagon. We're on the top 2 guys in this game. But let's move on to the Pacers side. As I mentioned, Oladipo, Brogdon, we don't know what's going on with Oladipo. He played some scrimmages, kind of. He practiced, kind of, we think. But we don't even know if he opted in yet. I just read earlier, we don't even know what his participation level is going to be in these games. And Brogdon's questionable and Sabonis is out. So what do you make of this Pacers lineup that's beat up more now than it was when we had this layoff?
Yeah, I mean, you certainly touched on it. The Pacers have so many question marks going to this game that it's. I think we're gonna have to adjust and coordinate our lineups, up to the minute. And thankfully, there's the late swap option on DraftKings, which is really gonna help us here. But in terms of value, if all these guys you mentioned are out, Brogdon, Oladipo, Sabonis, T.J. Warren at 5,800 is a guy that might be interesting to look at. Because they have to score at some point. And the Pacers, I think that they're going to have to lean on a guy like T.J. Warren at 5,800. He's priced fairly well. And if the game you mentioned stays close, that could be certainly some guy that can really be in some winning lineups if the game is close. And if a bunch of the point guards are out, I really like Aaron Holiday. And at 4,000 DraftKings salary, I feel like he could potentially really exceed that value. But outside of those guys, I wouldn't take too many shots on anyone else in the Pacers, given all these questionable tags going into tomorrow's matchup.
Yeah, there is so much there I don't fully know. I think, like you said, I think Warren is a safe play, especially if Depot and Brogdon are out. I love some TJ Warren at 5,800. Take it if Brogdon doesn't play, his usage bumps all the way up to 31%, and he averages 1.07 fantasy points per minute. He would play 35 minutes, assuming it's remotely close. So that's huge. If Oladipo doesn't play, his usage is around 28%, and he averages just under 1. But he's still going to play a ton of minutes, so that's all right. If they both don't play, he's going to be their number one option, and he was never shy about shooting. I can see 20 shots easily for him. I don't know how many he'll make, but that's a lot of usage going around for a guy at 5,800. And he's going to get some rebounds, a couple assists. He'll probably handle the ball. So I really like him. You mentioned it. If Depot and Brogdon don't play, Aaron Holiday and T.J. McConnell at 4,000, 3,800 become interesting guys. They both average over a point a minute when they're off the court. When Depot's off the court or Brogdon's off the court, Justin Holiday you can kind of look at because someone's got to score. But for me, I really like Miles Turner. I know I just made fun of him that he doesn't rebound, but he's much better with Sabonis off the court. He's been playing great in these exhibition games. He's only 6,200 on DraftKings. So if I'm not paying up for a center, or if he's my second center, I could live with that. He can easily get double-digit rebounds without Sabonis there. And depending on which guard plays and which doesn't, his usage is going to bump up. He has a 27% usage and 1.3 fantasy points per minute with no Brogdon, and a 26% usage and 1.3 points per minute without Oladipo. So if one of those guys misses, this is a guy I'm really actively targeting, and I could see him exceeding value easily. All right. So it looks like we hit those three teams. We do have it's funny, we have a lot of, we said this before, we like a lot of value plays here. We haven't gotten to the big guys yet outside of Embiid and Simmons and some guys on the Heat. You like Jokic. But let's see what we can do. But before we get there, I want to talk about a couple of things that are really, really going on at Hoop Ball, and it's awesome. The first one is we're with Manscaped now, and I don't know if you guys know Manscaped.com, but they have this new thing out there. It's called the Lawnmower 3.0, and you can get it in a gift set as well in the Perfect Package 3.0. I don't know if you have one, Dave, but this thing is awesome. This thing is literally a lawnmower for grooming, and I couldn't endorse it anymore. And with that Perfect Package 3.0 set, you also get some ball toner, some ball deodorant, and the nicest pair of boxer briefs out there. They're so comfortable. But have you tried Manscaped yet? I think you have one, but this thing is awesome. If you don't have the Lawnmower 3.0 right now, if you only have the 2.0 or the 1.0, you're going to want to see the new upgrade.
Yeah, the 3.0 is fantastic. I couldn't be more excited about how well it grooms, honestly.
Yeah, it's awesome. And now it's my favorite time of the night. I get to talk about my bookie. So everybody, silence your cell phones. Oh, no, don't. Put up your volume way loud and say it with me, guys. Sports are back, baby. I've been waiting for this day since mid-March. And now that it's here, I've only got one thing on my mind. I've only had one thing on my mind the last couple days, and that is MyBookie. MyBookie is a home run, a slam dunk, triple overtime, game-winning shot, all wrapped into one, and I love it. You guys will love it too, and that's all you should need to know and hear to start betting today. MyBookie has up-to-the-minute odds on all your favorite teams, and with the start of the NBA bubble season just happening, just kicking off, there's never been a better time to start playing. With MyBookie, it's easy, guys. If you bet, if you win, they pay you right there. If you're feeling good about your MLB team's chances this year, be sure to check out MyBookie's World Series future bets before it gets too late. Nothing shows you believe in your squad like betting on your team before the season's even begun, assuming we can finish, which is unfortunate. But why stop with baseball, guys? Smart bettors are always looking towards the future. And in this case, that means the Bubble Resumption League. That means hockey. That means football, which is right around the corner as well. We're less than a month, we're about a little over a month before football. Wow, we are going so fast. But MyBookie is already accepting bets on all your favorite NBA, NHL, and NFL games. There's never been a better time to start exploring the world of online sports betting. We have basketball going on right now. We have baseball going on right now. Hockey's there. NFL is going to be right around the corner. This is crazy. This is unprecedented. We never had all these sports going on at once, guys. So join today, and MyBookie will match your deposit 100%. Let me say that again. Join today, and MyBookie will match your deposit 100%. One more time for the fans in the high nosebleed seats up out in the stands. Join today, and MyBookie will match your deposit 100%. Plus, they'll toss you a free $10 MLB future wager. All you got to do is enter promo code HoopBall. That's HOOPBALL when you're signing up, and they will do that 100% match of deposit and $10 MLB future wager. So remember, guys, at MyBookie, the terms are simple. You bet, you win, they pay. And I could tell you firsthand, MyBookie is awesome, and I love doing it. I got paid before, and I can't wait to get paid again when I cash out. I've been playing ever since the bubble came back, ever since baseball came back. I'm just super pumped about this. So don't miss out this promo right now. This promo code is fantastic, and you're gonna wanna get that extra money out there and make some good bets. And don't forget to listen to our Hoopball Gaming podcast and get all the greatest news and insight on how to get your money and how to win some money and where to put it on. But yeah, those are some of my favorite things, and I just had to tell everybody about it. Dave, are you a big bettor by chance? Besides DFS, obviously.
Absolutely. I definitely do enjoy throwing some wagers on. You mentioned the NBA slates, now they're back, and MLB is back as well. So definitely enjoy throwing some action in from time to time as well.
And I know you said you were a Sixer fan, correct?
Correct.
Awesome. One of my favorite bets before this kicked off, and I think it's still out there, I haven't checked, but one of my favorite bets was putting some money on the Sixers at plus 900 to win the East. With that team, and if Simmons and Embiid can work and as their two bigs, they can make some noise. So I really like that bet there. I don't know how you feel about that. I'm assuming you're all over that bet.
I'm all over that. That was the first bet I made, so I'm excited to see how that plays out in the next few weeks.
Awesome. So we might win some money together on MyBookie, which would be fantastic. But yeah, after that, let's get right back into the grind of things. We'll jump into the game, the last game of the night, because this is a very interesting game. It's at 8:30. You have a team that is favored to win it all and a team that won it all last year. That's the LA Lakers versus the Toronto Raptors. Let me see the line. I almost skipped it. The Lakers are favored by 4 points, so the Raptors are getting 4. The Raptors are a plus 150 on the money line. The Lakers are negative 170 on the money line, and the over/under is, you guys guessed it. Dave, can you guess it? What do you think the over/under is?
I'm just gonna guess 1.5.
It's 215.5, just like the Sixers Pacers, and a half a point different than the Jazz Thunder. That's just the line of the night on MyBookie, guys. And all these lines are produced by MyBookie at this moment. They probably will change, but we'll see what happens. So as we know, the Lakers are playing without Rajon Rondo right now. They're playing without Avery Bradley. One is hurt. One has decided against playing. And the Raptors are pretty healthy. So what do you see in this? This does have the two highest guys two highest priced guys on the slate, and we have another high priced guy in Siakam and a couple other guys around there. But how do you feel about the Lakers Raptors? Two maybe teams that might meet in the finals, but very good basketball teams.
Yeah, you mentioned it. As far as the game itself, very exciting matchup. As you mentioned, potential NBA champion favorite along with the defending champion. So that's certainly exciting. From the Lakers side, you definitely mentioned it. LeBron James and Anthony Davis are two of the highest priced players on the slate. And those are guys that I'm going to be looking at a little bit. Given the over under being at 215 and understanding that this game should stay fairly close given in terms of who's available for each side. I like LeBron quite a bit. 10,900 is certainly very high price tag. So he's a guy that I wouldn't be putting into a lot of my lineups, but a guy that I'll definitely sprinkle in I would say around 15 to 20% of my lineups. Anthony Davis is a guy that at 10,400, one of the highest price centers on the slate, and he put up 49 DraftKings points last game. A guy that should be able to hit 50 points DraftKings wise pretty easily against the Raptors, who are pretty good defensive team. But I still think that Anthony Davis should really play well. From a value perspective on the Lakers side, you mentioned there's a lot of guys that are missing the restart. So a guy that I expect to really step up, and he stepped up pretty nicely in the first game, is a guy, Kyla Kuzma, in the front court. At only 4,300, I certainly see him as a great value play and a guy that shouldn't be heavily owned on the slate. Given the fact that he's most likely going to be coming off the bench as well. So I like Kyla Kuzma quite a bit in the Lakers side.
Oh, you're a Kuz guy. I'm a Laker fan, actually, and Kuzma is all right. I'm just I wish we traded him instead of everybody else. But, the Lakers they're the 12th fastest team in the league. The Raptors are 14th, but the Lakers are LeBron James. The Lakers are Anthony Davis. Everybody else gets what is left over. Kuzma had a pretty good game the other night. I'm not really looking to get him because the Raptors are one of the best defensive teams in the league, and especially at defending three-pointer. And that makes me not really want Danny Green. And I think everybody after Kuzma, who gets the third highest usage, it's really a toss-up on who's going to go off that night. Deion Waiters had a pretty good game. He looked like he's engaged playing basketball again for once. Alex Caruso played pretty well in the fourth quarter, but then maybe tonight or tomorrow it's J.R. Smith or someone of that nature that gets it. To me, I only really want to look at LeBron or AD on this slate because there's so many games. And if I'm going to look at one, slightly with LeBron with the better matchup. Anthony Davis, they might throw Siakam at him. They might throw Ibaka at him, Marc Gasol. He can eat all of them up. But I like LeBron against OG pretty much a lot of the time. To be honest, I don't know if they're going to fully play this game. So if you're looking at the standings, the Lakers pretty much have the number one seed locked up after beating the Clippers last night. All they need to do is win one game the rest of the restart, or have the Clippers lose one game, or have the Nuggets lose one game. Their magic number, if you didn't get it after that, is 1, whether they win or one of those two teams lose. So they're locked in for that number one seed. So to me, I don't know if they really want to play LeBron James 35 minutes a game or Anthony Davis 35 minutes a game. But on the flip side to that, they are playing against Toronto. So if they want to make a statement, this is the game to make the statement, and then you could kind of ease in everybody afterwards when the schedule gets a little lighter. So that's something I'm going to keep an eye on with LeBron and AD. If I hear anything about maybe they're going to curb their minutes and get everybody else on the same page so when they get to the playoffs. But if I don't hear any of that, I'm definitely going to target one of those two guys, especially since we throw out a lot of value plays, and we're going to have a lot of money left over for one of these big guys. But how do you feel about the Raptors? Because there are some solid value on the Raptors as well.
Yeah, you definitely mentioned it, given the Lakers standing. But I think in their mind, they're going to be showing, I think, the whole NBA world and putting everyone on notice in this game in terms of just how formidable they're going to be, even with LeBron James's freshly shaved gray beard and all.
I love it.
I certainly think it's going to be fun to watch for sure. And from the Raptors side, ironically, I only like one guy in particular on the Raptors side, and he's not much of a value play, but it's Pascal Siakam at 8,400. A price tag that's somewhat comfortable given his potential for really playing well. And if this matchup stays close, I really like him to exceed value. But what I'm really excited about when we talk about Siakam is he's potentially going to be playing also a new position in this restart at small forward. So that should be very interesting to see how he can adjust at small forward. And given his skill set, I think it's only going to open up his abilities to really play more of that versatile kind of role on the Raptors, and it's going to help them go a long way. So I like Siakam quite a bit on the Raptors side.
Nice. There's a couple people I like on the Raptors, but not too much. Siakam would be at the top of the list for all the reasons you mentioned. He's averaging 1.17 fantasy points per minute with 29% usage. But we'll see. It could change now that he's playing a different position. He's going to be out more on the wing. They'll probably give him a little bit more ball handling responsibilities. Speaking of ball handling, for 8,000, it's a little steep for me. But if I have the money left over, I'll look towards Kyle Lowry. I was hoping he was more about 772, because then that would be really value play for me. 8,000, it's a little pricier for my range, but I think this matchup fits him well, and that's why I was hoping that it was a little lower. If he's going to be, people are going to guard him like Alex Caruso, maybe Dion Waiters, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He can easily get some buckets on them, and he's not afraid to shoot from downtown, so he would be a guy that I'm looking at. But again, it all depends on my price budget afterwards, because that 8,000 was a little higher than I expected. Another guy I'm looking at is very low, Marc Gasol. If I'm digging in the bargain bin for centers, I do like a couple centers more than him. But if I start paying up elsewhere, Marc Gasol is a guy that I would look at in this matchup. I don't think he's gonna be too bad, but for 4,500, I think he can easily exceed value there in this matchup against JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard. But yeah, those are pretty much what I'm looking for here as well. Not too many people, but they do have some value. I wish Lowry was a little lower price. He would bump up for me higher than Siakam. But for Siakam for 400 extra, I like that there. So yeah, we're on the last game of the night, guys. Our fifth game of the slate, and this is the game that we saved for last because it is the highest over/under on the night. It is the most exciting one on the night. We have a bunch of really good matchups. Obviously, when we're in the bubble and 16 teams of 22 make it, you're going to have some really good matchups. But we don't have any clinkers in here, except for maybe the Pacers if everybody sits. But this game is going to start at 6 p.m., a little earlier than the Sixers-Pacers and Lakers-Raptors. It is the Pelicans versus the Clippers. The Clippers are favored by 5 points. As we know, Lou Williams will not be here because of chicken wings. Montrezl Harrell will not be playing. He's still not ready to get back and cleared from the bubble or in the bubble. But Patrick Beverley played last night. And let's look. The money line is plus 175 for the Pelicans, who desperately need this win after blowing it to the Jazz. They were up by as many as 16. The Clippers are negative 210 on the money line, and the over/under is the highest of the night at 226.5, which is a full 11 points higher than the second closest matchup. The Pelicans are fairly healthy. The only question I would say is Zion. Are they going to unleash him? Do they want to make the playoffs, or do they just want to have him for his career? But besides that, that's all there is on the Pelicans. So what do you got for me on the Pelicans, Dave? To me, I love the Pelicans. They're super exciting.
Yeah, you definitely mentioned it. It's super exciting when I have in my notes 5 Pelicans, and none of them are actually Zion Williamson. So that's something that's certainly something to look at. But for me, given Zion's uncertainty and potentially being on a minutes limit, I'm going to start with Drew Holiday, 8,200, a guy that is a plug and play. Pretty much anytime he plays, especially in this matchup, I know he's got a tough matchup potentially with Patrick Beverley, but I still expect him to be pretty valuable and should be able to exceed value fairly consistently. Brandon Ingram, 7,800, another guy, sub 8,000. He's been playing really well, and he showed it again last game as well. I know he's going to have a tougher matchup against the Clippers, but he should be able to get his shots, and that's a guy that I'll look at in a lot of my lineups as well. Lonzo Ball, another one, 7,700. Yeah, Lonzo himself, although auto-corrected on mine at Gonzo Ball, so that's something to look at. But the auto-correction and all, I definitely like him as well. He should be a guy that should be pretty valuable. And then if you're going to go value-wise, you mentioned a couple guys. Josh Hart, 3,900, is a guy that really played well last game, and he's certainly showing that in the second unit he really thrives well on this Pelicans roster, and he's a guy that should be able to exceed 3,900 pretty confidently from that standpoint. And then finally, JJ Redick, former Sixer, I had to throw that in there, 3,500, and last game he put up 30 DraftKings points. If he gets hot from deep, he's a guy that can exceed value. He's another guy that's definitely going to be more boom or bust, but I like him as well from the Pelicans side.
Awesome. And this is probably the well, we were right on the money on the Heat. We like those two guys and switched, but I'm pretty much almost on the same boat with you on all of the Pelicans. I love Drew Holiday in this matchup at 8,200. That's really good. They're going to play. The Pelicans play at the third highest pace, just under the Timberwolves, and the Clippers play at the eighth highest pace. This matchup suits Drew Holiday tremendously, and he's either going to have Reggie Jackson or probably Patrick Beverley on him. That's awesome. You mentioned Lonzo Ball. Lonzo to me I love Lonzo Ball. I really wish they kept him or Ingram now. I always wanted that. I wanted to get rid of Kuzma, but Lonzo Ball, to me, his value is tied into Zion Williamson, and I say that because he's playing when Zion is on the court with him. Lonzo, the good ball brother, is playing the best basketball of his career. They just gel together really well. They have a unspoken connection on the court where they just play off each other much better. But if Zion is limited, then I'm going to slightly downgrade Zoe, but because he is 7,700, that is expensive. I'd rather just pay the $500 more to get Drew Holiday. I really like Zion. I know you didn't say put him on your list, but for 7,500, if I know he's going to get minutes, if they want to make the playoffs, they need to win this game. So it's up to them whether they want to risk his future, kind of, not really, or get in this playoffs now, or just wait till next year to really make something. If they can lift that minutes limit, Zion is going to be in a tremendous matchup. Both these teams can go small. They might put Zion at the 5 with Marcus Morris on him or something, and there is not a guy on the Clippers team that can match this guy's size on size. I think he still is on a minutes limit. I don't know how big it's going to be, but that will curb my love for Zion a little bit in this game. JJ Redick and Josh Hart, you mentioned both of them. The Clippers can go small. They don't have Harrell. Zubac's really not going to play too many minutes. Joakim Noah doesn't suit this matchup. So I see them going small, and if both teams go small, JJ Redick and Josh Hart will get more minutes, and they can both play very good. Josh Hart's probably the best rebounding guard in the league. JJ Redick, as we saw the other night and the last couple scrimmages, gets hot all the time. As for Brandon Ingram, I like Brandon Ingram. I like Drew Holiday more than him at 400 more, and that's because getting Paul George and Kawhi Leonard as your defensive matchups or matching up on you, I would rather not steer that way because those are two of the best perimeter defenders in the league. he could still put up numbers, but I'd rather fade him for that reason. But if I have the money and I'm there, I maybe look at him. But yeah, we're pretty much on the same. Just switch Zion and Ingram around, and we have everybody else that we like, with Drew leading the pack. But how do you feel about the Clippers? Another team that has some solid pricing out there, and two other big guys, Hero and Williams, are out again.
Yeah, you definitely mentioned that. On the Clippers side, actually, and instead of the 5 guys I mentioned on the Pelicans, and on my side, I actually like only 2 guys in the Clippers, and that's the two big guns on the Clippers right now. It's Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Kawhi Leonard, 8,900, sub 9,000. Every time you can get Kawhi Leonard sub 9,000, is a guy that's rounding into playoff form, and should be able to easily exceed value at that price tag. So I'm going to put him in a good amount of lineups. And my favorite play of the entire slate, just based on value and how form he's been putting up in the last game and scrimmage, is Paul George. You mentioned 7,900 is a kind of an egregious price tag for Paul George, especially in this matchup against the Pelicans, who barely play defense. So last game he put up 47 DraftKings points. I think he should be able to hit that pretty easily in this matchup, and especially at a paced-up type of game with this over-under so high. I love Paul George as my favorite play of the entire slate.
Yeah, I think we shared notes on this one because Paul George is mine as well. At 7,900, you mentioned it. I said why I don't like Brandon Ingram, because he's going to be guarded by Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Well, Paul George is only $100 more than Brandon Ingram. He's only $200 more than Lonzo Ball. That's for a guy who's completely healthy right now. They were saying it before the resumption started. He looked fantastic the other night on that game. He's one of the top 15 players in the league when he's healthy. 7,900. We're getting him at the discount that's probably not going to last long. So sign me up, especially in this matchup. I just really like that price. And yeah, Kawhi Leonard at 8,900. You mentioned anytime you can get him sub 900, that's a really good play. I like Paul George more because you keep $1,000. But Kawhi Leonard's not too shabby himself, and he's one of the handful of best players in the NBA. Sub 9,000, that's a extremely good price for me as well. 2 under the radar guys, if you want to play, because this is going to be a fast-paced matchup. This is the highest over/under on the night. Would be for me Reggie Jackson again with no Lou Williams. He's probably going to start again, and at 4,100, I expect a better showing against a faster-paced team and a worse defensive team against the in the Pelicans. So I expect a little bit better numbers than he put. He had 10.6 boards and 4 assists. I can see a little bit bump in there, and 4,000 he can easily return value. And another guy that I'm not huge on, but if I need to dig in the bargain bin again, Marcus Morris, I expect better than what he did the other night. And he's probably going to play a lot of 4 and 5 as well, because both teams can go small. But yeah, we're on the Paul George bandwagon in this one for 7,900. It's only a matter of time before it gets bumped up to 85, 90,000 or 9,000. Awesome. So we hit all 5 games, Dave. Is there anything that you want to tell the listeners before we leave? Any last-minute thoughts, any last-minute things that changed, anything that you want them to keep in mind before we get back?
No, I think we got through everything. Just excited. NBA's back, and these should be some exciting games to definitely watch. So I hope everyone gets their popcorn ready to watch some exciting matchups.
Awesome. And Dave, tell everybody where they can find you on Twitter if they're not already following you right now, which they should be, guys. You should be.
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at dmank33. For all your Twitter questions.
Awesome. Yep. And you can find me at Santino Caccone if you're not already doing that. But yeah, as you said, get your popcorn ready, because these are going to be some exciting games all day, all Saturday, from 1 o'clock all the way to 8:30. We have games tipping off, and it's going to be a fun one. But for myself and for Dave, thank you guys for joining another edition of Hoop Ball DFS today. And don't forget to continue to check out all of our amazing stuff that we got going on. We just had a site overhaul. We have some podcasts dropping all the time. All team podcasts dropping, our sports betting podcast dropping all the time. Fantasy NBA Today's with Dan Bespris, the great Dan Bespris, I should say. We're doing a lot of great things over here, so continue to check us out. Don't forget about manscaped.com and Hoopball and promo code Hoopball20, and definitely don't forget about MyBookie with Hoopball or promo code Hoopball. So that's it for tonight, and hopefully you can win you some cash tonight. But have a good one and stay safe.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.